are you doing? And today I'm going to bring you a video on how to be alternative. So what exactly is being alternative? Well, today you're going to find out. Alternative is a scene that originated originally in the 1970s starting with punk. Punk was a movement that started and soon others created. Goth was the next one. Grunge was the next one. Emo was the next one. Scene was the next one. And then we had all kinds of other ones. So basically, it was everything that was away from the mainstream, and some started through music. Punk started out of music. The goth scene started out of music, and emo started out of music. Punk started with the music. Goth started out of post-punk. Emo started out of pop-punk. So most of the cultures were derived out of punk, believe it or not. Scene was out of crunkcore, and I don't know much about scene, so correct me if I'm wrong, but most of it came from punk music, believe it or not, but just different forms of punk. So that's where some of it came from. So yeah, and it came away from the mainstream music. Punk rock is not mainstream classic rock, so hence the word alternative, because it was an alternative to classic rock. How do I find out what kind of music I'm into? Well, you've got screamo, you've got first wave and second wave post-punk, you've got new wave, you've got synth pop, you've got pop punk. About said post-punk again, sorry guys. You've got heavy alternative metal, you've got doom metal, you've got indie rock, you've got grunge, you've got different types. And if you study different subcultures, there's different forms. Like emos tend to go for screamo, and they tend to go for pop punk. Punks go for what's known for different forms of punk, like classic punk. That's things like, well, let me finish explaining emo. So emo is like things like, for pop punk, like My Chemical Romance, old Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy, Paramore. Some listen to 21 Pilots, sometimes Mayday Parade, sometimes Falling in Reverse. For screamo, I wouldn't always label some of these screamo bands, but tend to lean towards Asking Alexandria, Sleeping with Sirens, Pierce the Veil, sometimes Black Veil Brides, even though I don't know if you could count Black Veil Brides, but I think that would cover it. Punks tend to listen to with like classic punk. They tend to listen to, yes, I know this band name is gonna sound weird, but to some people, but the Sex Pistols and the Ramones, the Rancid, and things like that. And I'm not really that much known well to punk, and I apologize for not being educated well into punk. And for goth, first wave includes like Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, Joy Division, and second wave is like Sisters of Mercy. Well, for them, they listen to like death rock, cold wave, dark wave, post-punk, ethereal, and sometimes horror punk or shock rock, but sometimes for those two genres. This is more of an experimental thing. Metalheads are still metalheads, kinda. and I do not know what e-girls and scene kids listen to. I know scene kids listen to crunkcore, but that's pretty much all I know. All I know is Blood on the Dance Floor. That's all I know. But hey, I'm sorry, but that's all I know. And maybe Hollywood Undead. I'm really bad about scene. I'm sorry. And I have no idea what the e-kids listen to. I'm sorry. I'm not the most educated for them, and I do apologize for that. But just, if you know what you want to be, try to get into the music. But if you don't know what you are, experiment with the music. Or if you end up taking a liking for different types of music, just consider yourself alternative and don't pick a label. Just consider yourself the umbrella term, like I do. Know the history of what scene you picked. For example, goth came out of the punk scene in the late 70s and 80s, following the song from Bauhaus, Bela Lugosi's Dead. It sprouted out of punk and it started a whole different scene of like-minded people. One problem we do have in the alternative community is the elitism issue, which is where people who are in the culture and is educated on the culture will call people out on things that they do not know and label them as posers on whether or not they are new or they may not know something, and say they are a poser for completely not knowing it. So that can be an issue if you're new, or you're a baby bat, which is a term for new goth, if you're new to goth, or you're new to being alternative. Not all alternative cultures will use the term baby bat, but in terms, it's like the term, if you're new to being alternative, that term does get used, and it does, of course, get used, and it pretty much happens. Like, the elitism issue happens, and it's a pain. Well, it's a real pain, so it sure happens. So knowledge is power. I always tell people knowledge is power. So they can take everything away from you, but what they can't take is your mind. So the more you know about something, the better off you are. So they can take everything away from you, but they can never take your mind from you. So learning as much as you can about something is the best thing that you can do. So learning the roots of the music, the culture, the history, it'll do you the best justice that it can do. So it'll do you some justice, and if you learn what they won't teach you, it'll shock them and it'll help you. So learning what you can, it'll do you some justice. So I recommend it. For fashion, I'm not really good at fashion advice, but I guess band t-shirts, jeans, skirts, combat boots, chains, chokers, gloves. I guess tattoos, piercings, whatever you feel like. I guess this is your style. You could get creative with it, but realize if you get a tattoo, you probably won't be able to get that off without tattoo removal, and it's probably going to be hurting, and it's going to be expensive. And for piercings, you're going to have to wait for that to close, especially a belly button piercing, and that's going to take a while. So I don't recommend like you just straight out without thinking get one and regret it. So but yeah, that's all I really have though. But I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later. Until next time.